Good morning, everybody. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. This is Chevy Cool Lady, and today we are talking SRA survivors. We're going to hear from Jessie Zaboda. We're going to watch part one of her testimony. And people, if you have not heard of Jessie, testimony is powerful and glorious, and we support all abuse survivors at Chevy Cool Lady, and Miss Jessie is one. So we're going to hear her testimony. Come on in, grab you a coffee. Uh, let's wake up together. I don't know why I'm so tired today. I slept great, but here we are. Come on in, people. I don't know why always hold a coffee cup like backwards. I don't grab the handle. Does anyone else do that? Come on in. We're preparing to have a little watch party. So come on in. Come on in. Come on in. You know, you are welcome here. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and have a little watch party, question answers in the chat. Come on in. The Purpose Project. Okay, so here we go.
Jessie Zaboda. Her testimony is extensive and intense. Fasten your seatbelts for this one.
Fasten your
It involves
seatbelts.
graphic topics, some of them in detail. I have listened to nearly 20 hours of this
Trigger
woman's
warning,
testimony
trigger
from different
warning.
sources and shows. It involves the Luciferian Brotherhood cult and the
The
abuse that goes
Lucy's.
along with that system.
The
Jessie was in
Lucy's.
it and was delivered from it. Now to share her experiences and help others who have escaped that system in their processing. Some of these topics are fringe and hard to believe. There are no prerequisites for listening to this podcast episode or any episode that I have. But a lot of this involves spiritual belief systems, particularly belief in the Christian purview of the world, good and evil,
Oh yeah.
God and the devil,
This is about God
spiritual
and the devil,
warfare,
people.
the unseen realms, things like that. If those things are not comfortable for you, then this may not be the episode for you. But if you're curious and do have some level of belief in something that's greater than us, maybe sit through it and open your ears.
So
The
come on
fact
in.
is, there's a depth of evil in this world that most of us cannot contend with, cannot comprehend, and most of us are unwilling to look at and acknowledge. We know about child sex trafficking. We know about rape,
For
murder, mass
educational
slavery
purposes.
in cobalt mines in the Congo. We know of the oppression in places like China and North Korea, thanks to people like Yeonmi Park and her testimony. We have heard of these evils, but mostly they seem far away, unless you've experienced it in your own life.
Come on in, everybody.
Today, we're here to look at that evil, to acknowledge its existence, and to hear from somebody who has lived among it. If we are to defeat our enemy, any enemy, it is best that we know as much as we can about that enemy.
Amen.
If you have any questions about this episode or about Jessie, there are links in the show notes, and you can email me at theallcastinbox
And
at
we're going to talk about it.
gmail.com. This
We're going to
episode is
talk
brought to
about
you
it
by
today.
Black Flag Hybrid Grappling in Glendale, Arizona. The Arizona Catch Wrestling Championship is on Sunday, March
Let's go
19th,
ahead and let me
2023.
skip through
This
a
tournament
little bit of
welcomes
that
all
for you
academy.
guys. And we're going to bring her back here in just a minute when we get through all that mess. How is everybody today? Glory to God. All right. I'm doing great, just a little bit sleepy. So I thought we'd watch old Jessie and hear her testimony. I haven't heard it for a while in this manner. And then we're going to have a little question answer in the discussion and talk about SRA abuse. religious abuse in light of the FBI raid at Solid Rock. Interesting enough, that's another SR, isn't it? SRA, really. But we're going to talk about all these things here. Come on in, grab your coffee and come on in. Yeah. All right. Jessie Zabota, I don't know if y'all are familiar with her, but just a little background. She was from a high-ranking Luciferian family. Half of her family was involved in the occult. She was, for all intents and purposes, trained from a very young age in the Luciferian church and was presumed to be the next or one of the mothers of darkness, one of the top ranking leaders directly under Lucifer for his dark kingdom in this earth. And, she foiled his plans on her life and she became a Christian at a young age. She was saved and learned the ways of God. And although she suffered so much right up through the age of 10, and even in some ways to this present day, because the Lucies don't like to let their people go. You understand? They invest a lot in the training and teaching in a person, and they get furious when they accept Jesus and start working for the kingdom of heaven. But we rejoice in this thing. I might have to pull this up again. It seems to be a little bit stuck. Okay, it looks like we're going here. I have it together here, guys. My technology is not the best. I live out in the country and it's just slow. It just says my grandson would like to tell me all the time. It's lagging. It's lagging on my game. All right, so we're going to hear from Jesse's about it. Grab your coffee. Is extreme trigger warning here, guys. If matters of SA or religious abuse offend you or hurt your feelings, please feel free to opt out of this particular video. This is not the kind of video that you want to have young children around. This is serious stuff. This is real, and this is happening today. Just bear with me, guys. Okay. I'm just pulling it back up. We had a little issue there with it. Okay. Jesse Sabota. This is with the the Purpose Project. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and watch something different. For some reason, that does not want to come on. It's really weird, isn't it? But we don't give up easily, do we now? No, we do not. Okay, so this is Jesse Zabota. We've been talking a lot about signs, sigils, authority, the brotherhood, and spiritual contracts. So let's see what somebody else has to say. Somebody who really is an authority, somebody I've learned a lot from for sure. Signs and sigils, guys. Do these look familiar? They should. They definitely should.
The military, we'll see them internationally with a crest. The crests are going to differently than the circular city sigils, as well as some of the governmental sigils. So it's important to recognize that what I'm giving us here today is just, this is how you would read a city sigil or who's regionally in control of that area.
Okay, so this is what we're going to be looking at today, the signs and sigils of the brotherhood of the Luciferian system, which is set up as which has set up its insidious claws over absolutely every organization, almost it would seem, and to the point where, most of us have been blind to their ways. We weren't trained in these ways, and we were never taught different. So when we see the city seals and the signs and the sigils, we don't even recognize it. We say, yeah, the state seal. Well, there's power in the seal, and that's the whole purpose of it. We know that the elite love to talk in symbols, and they talk in symbols to each other. They let each other know where there's places of ritual sacrifice. They let each other know when and where these events take place. I believe there's huge ceremonies that take place 4 times a year, along with the local areas have many ceremonies, many rituals that they go through. So we're going to look at some of the things that are put out in our face that we were not to recognize, but we will recognize it, and we'll learn about it if you stick with me, because I'm really interested in this. So just come on in. Okay. We're going to be looking at some of the signs and sigils that we see all the time here. Okay. Here we go. Just going to kind of pick up here. We'll see what Jesse's talking about.
System, which is the
principalities of darkness and demonic realms, and how the brotherhood uses them to establish, to control specific areas. I'd like to get into that.
Let's do it.
Yay.
Are you okay if I try? I think I can try to do a screen share and pull it up at least.
Jesse Zabota,
people can see the sigil if you're okay with that.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
Trained in the Luciferian
system. So here's
revealing the ways of darkness now to us in signs
All right.
Yeah.
So we've got what we have, and I've been working hard to build a series called Unveiling of the Structure of the System that you can find on my website, kingdomlivingwithjessie.com. I have the first 2 episodes on there that break down the system, kind of like we talked about on our last show. So, one of the things that we're looking at here is that, in the old system, which is the Babylon system, that system had a certain structure to it. They, broke everything into quadrants and into regions. So with the sigils, what we're looking at is their way of regionally communicating among the higher ups what's available in that city, who's in control, who's got the authority. So these are things that actually we can read, and just like we'll see them in the cities, we'll also see these, we'll see them internationally with a crest. The crests are going to be read differently than the circular city sigils, as well as some important to recognize that what I'm giving us here today is just, this is how you would read a city sigil for who's regionally in control of that area. If you want to get, more practice in this, I also offer, usually it's every few months, but I offer the land assignment coaching courses that you can take. And those are done live, and we go over a lot of sigils. And I, will go over the material that I'm going over here today in those. So those are free. You can take as many as you want. I encourage people to sign up for those because they're a wealth of information. So when you're looking at these sigils, the first thing that we have to understand is that, we're going to read them like a clock, and it's a 3-layer clock. So you have an outer layer that's just kind of implied. It's there, but because it's interfacing with the spiritual, you're not going to directly see it, like you just have to know it. Then there's a middle layer that we'll read, and there's an inner layer. So this outer layer that we read tells us which principalities or authorities are primarily kind of governing the area. And, I'll just tell you guys what they are. At the 12 o'clock mark up here, you have the principality Abaddon. In the center, you have the principality Ra. Down below, you're going to have the principality Leviathan. Then at the 1 to 2 o'clock, you're going to have Baal. At the 3 o'clock, you'd have Molech. At the 4 to 5, you're going to have Baphomet. At the 6 to 7, you'd have Azazel. At the 9 o'clock, you'd have Toth. And at the 10 to 11 o'clock, you have Samael. Now, in the system, they kind of see these imaginary pillars that go along with those principalities. They also can display those principalities on a diamond shape rather than a circular clock. So if you're seeing like a, big diamond shape in the middle of somewhere in some building, know that that's probably what that's referring to. So all of it means the same things, the Rosicrucian layman that's a cross with the rose in the middle of it. You have like the 4 parts of the cross that extend, and then you have the rose in the middle. It all is the exact same imagery, the same as, with the Kabbalah tree. You'd have the tree up here, you'd have a man, you'd have a woman, representing this middle line, and then you're going to have 2 pillars here. All of it is the exact same thing. You would overlap and read it. So you read each of those for principalities as well. So here, as you're a sigil, you kind of for the principalities, you look at where you see the heaviness in the picture. So, we definitely see a lot in the middle. So we know that you're going to have a lot with Ashtaroth and a lot of goddess worship there in Hawaii, the sides. So what that's telling us is that, all the way from Molech, Baphomet, Leviathan, Azazel, and Toth, they've got them all covered, right? And then you see a lot of heaviness kind of up here at the top, which also means you're going to have the Abaddon, Baal, and Samael, but they're kind of distinguishing the authority there. So there's a reason that they're doing it. What this is kind of telling us, Abaddon is one of the biggest principalities involved with military things, especially underground military bases. So what this is telling us is that Abaddon, Baal, and Samael are going to be highly connected with the underground military base. But as to the actual land of the island, you're going to have more of the others who are having their authority in that, exercising their authority in that area, with Leviathan's authority over all the waterways. So that's what that tells us. And Ashtaroth again is going to be the big, her and Leviathan are going to be kind of the big two. So then in this, you see the wording, and what they've kind of cleverly done is that this middle area here tells you about the two lodges in the area. They can have more than one Masonic lodge, but they'll always have a northern and a southern lodge. And with the wording, they tell you which lodge has more authority. So we see that the Southern Lodge wording takes up more space, telling us that the Southern Lodge in that area is the one that has the authority. Okay. Um, the other thing we see in here are, what it looks like, these dots separating the actual word, or words that are here. But what they do is they hide in that, where sometimes you'll see stars, sometimes you'll see these dots, sometimes you'll see little diamonds or arrows. But what these punctuation marks that they cleverly use really represent are the underground military base connections. So we know that just from this area here, we know that there's underground military, but these dots tell us just how much we're dealing with. These could be underground labs, these could be underground auxiliaries with weaponry, these could be submarine lines, they could be training centers, it could be a combination of all the above. And let's just count them. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 military facilities connected to the Hawaii area, the Pacific Islands. So that's a lot, that's a lot to have. Usually you'll see most will have 2 dots west, and that's usually where they'll, build them in the region. Like the dots show you where in the region they are. So why do they have so many and why so separated? I would propose it's because off of the main land, you have a bunch of little islands. And so they're telling us which of those little islands in the south, those military facilities are connected to. That's exactly what they're doing. Underneath them is just all military base and military facilities. So as we look further, then this neighborhood orders and sovereign military orders are at work in the region. And in the system, you have 3 primary top order. And again, that's not that's not after the Christian Melchizedek under the headship of Jesus Christ. This is, their order where they believe that, why they call it the order of Melchizedek is because they believe that they're gods and they believe that they can attain godhood and have eternal life. Underneath your primary two that you have to enter into in order to get into the order of Melchizedek, and that's going to be the order of the Phoenix and the order of the Golden Dawn. Now, the Golden Dawn is often represented in this way with it could be a full sun, like off in the corner. But we see here that definitely we have, order of the Golden Dawn is prominent. And because of, this whole section here, which we know is connected to those principalities and the military bases, this is telling us that, order of the Golden Dawn is primarily highly connected in this area. So, when you go into the military base areas, that's the primary order you're going to be dealing with. And then these other orders are connected in connection to some of the different islands or things that they're doing. Some of this old imagery that we see, the phoenix.
Kamehameha. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's our
that
king.
tells us. Yeah, that tells us that we've got the order of the phoenix, and so this, you're seeing it kind of hand in hand. They've got a big chunk of authority in that area. This also is going to represent that as well, but this is going to tell you that you've got two different, connected to the Order of the Phoenix, you're going to have two different Brotherhood militaries in charge. Sometimes you'll see this image with the two women, which would tell you about different priestess groups that you have. But why do they, use the imagery of the two different men? It's because they're dealing with different sovereign military orders in the areas, but also they're going off of different calendars. So, this part, those that fall under, and this is going to be your Sons of Liberty. And because we see the spears and the arrow there, that tells us that we also have the Order of Odin. So you're going to have the Order of Odin overseeing the sovereign military in the area for the Golden Dawn and the Order of the Phoenix. This also can do the Order of Odin, which is going to be the Order of the Red Men. And they're going to be going off of a Jesuit calendar, versus this, calendars, which are more of under the Order of the Phoenix calendars and connect to a different zodiac and different contracts in the spirit world. So you've got, those things going on. Under here, we see these three chains linked together. It also tells us another brotherhood group that will be connected to your Order of the Phoenix in the area, and that's going to be the Odd Fellows. It's common for Odd Fellows to buy at military bases and land and rent that, to the military. So my guess is, those are all your brotherhood connections there. Here we see a crest, which they've split it into 4 parts with the U.S. military symbol here. These kind of look like keyholes, just representing, the Kabbalah magic. Also can represent gateways doorways, and then you see the different, coloring imagery in here. Um, the Leviathan system, as well as the Sanhedrin, who are financially backing. The blue is going to represent your Vatican or the Rome side of the system, the Babylon, the old Babylon. White is a contract with Lucifer. So you've got, and then here you've got the white prominent. Here they cover up the white, kind of rendering it not as powerful in their coding, but here they make it pretty prominent. So it tells you placements, different things that are in that area. And then you know, this often you'll see laurels that kind of look like a Caesar crown. They've used some different vegetation to show forth this area, but that tells you about the priestesses that you have in the area, who will be attending the temples there and helping to coordinate events. So because they're not going with the normal Roman Caesar-esque type laurels, you get a different type of priestesses beyond, like the common priestesses are the priestesses of Delphi, the priestesses of Melissa, which would be the priestesses of Gaia. Those are the primary ones, and then you'll get connected to the lodges that priests, the daughters of the Nile, the daughters of Sarah, of Rebecca. But you're going to have, I think, some native priestesses who are higher up in those areas, connected to the Pacific Islands. This other one, that's for Honolulu. We see here that there's a little bit of switch up in the imagery, even though some of it overlaps. So we would see that we still have Avedon here, but see how everything is pretty equally looking for would be like this area. You've kind of got a lot of water space. That Levi chunk of that area with it. Then you have over here, we have Toth and Azazel. Over middle, you have Ashtaroth with a little bit of varies. With Honolulu, it's going to be, Ashtaroth and Leviathan, who primarily have the full governance with a little bit of Toth and Moloch in there and a little bit of Avedon. But so we see increased authority. We see as well, this beating again. I forgot to, because we see that too in this first sigil, all this beating. And what that represents are pearls. They can be golden, they can be any color, but that tells us that you've got, so we kind of see the pearls done in a different way here. If you see a whole bunch of like stars in this area, you would count those stars because it can tell you if there's special councilmen in the area connected to the council or the priory. So as we get into the second layer with the lodges south here, we see the southern part of the east and the west. As we get into the middle, we look at, what orders are kind of prominent there. We see the Golden Dawn again. The mountains represent that order of Odin that we said were in the other sigil. And then we see this windy path. And this imagery, you can, search the Golden Dawn, but that imagery of a winding path is very commonly marked on a lot of the magic books for the Golden Dawn. So that's just another way that they show the Golden Dawn. So those are the primary ones we see here. When you see a boat or a ship, usually if it's an older boat or more of like, your Christopher Columbus or a pirate type boat, that's going to be your Priory of Zion. But if it's like an Indian boat or another type of boat, it could be Priory of Zion, or it could be representing that Order of the Red Men. They can display it both ways. So we see an overlap in a lot of the same, brotherhoods that are all, over Hawaii, we see connected to this island as well. And we see the same, crest here, which a crest is another way for them to show an upside down triangle, which represents that city is under an unholy contract. If the triangle is pointed up, under a holy contract. So it just tells, like, again, what authorities are in. Let me look at what else. I think those were the main ones. The coat of arms, let me see if I can quick go to that one. This is going to be more of your more red for quadrant authority instead of the regional. So you won't quite see, like, it will be more like,
That's our old kingdom.
yeah, it'll be more telling you about like their military and the governance structure and kind of what they offer. So it's going to have more of the contracts versus the individual brotherhood groups that are there, because it tells who's contracted in the area and what ancient contracts. That tells you that, there's a Solomonic military contract, because that imagery represents the 72 principalities that King Solomon contracted with. So basically, this tells us that, and, we would see beyond just this little part here, that that imaginary line goes all the way up and down. That tells us that brotherhood contract, it is threefold, because usually when you see it, you've got a pillar here, men. So it tells us that threefold contract is there. Then we see an X here, which, later we see in that space of the X, we see that star. Like right here, see how you see that star?
Yeah.
Which, of course, our mind goes first to military, right?
Mhm.
Because that's often used that way. We see a shield that's upside down triangle representing an unholy contract. But what does that star really represent? When you go to one of the Order of Melchizedek's books with symbols, that star represents um, the brotherhood. right here. So this is initiates of the flame. This is
80s.
Oops. Oopsie. Okay. All right. So we're going to kind of breeze through that commercial. She's talking about the 5-pointed star representing the Luciferian Brotherhood. In that, there's 5 divisions. Okay. So what you got are, you got the Muslim Brotherhood, you got the Church of Latter-day Saints, you got the Jesuit Catholics, you got the Satanic, or Church of Satan, and you got the Kabbalah. Okay, the Kabbalah encapsulates, of course, the Zionists, which are now coming into power in the monetary system. The Vatican system has fallen. We see that in the Knights of Malta are shutting down, which is one of the highest orders in the sovereign military. Okay, so Melchizedek has been pushed forward with the rise of King Charles, who is, of course, the head of and when we say Melchizedek, we're talking the Luciferian system, we're talking the sovereign military, and the contracts of iniquity that they have with the principalities and powers over the land. So we're going to hear what Jesse has to say. This is all some very fascinating, interesting things. Jesse offers courses on her Kingdom Living with Jesse website. I suggest, if you're interested in that, dig this information up. We need to understand our enemy. We need to be able to walk into the land, map it out spiritually, and claim dominion in Jesus' name. Hallelujah. We need to anoint. Jesse suggests anoint even your feet, so that even your footsteps are anointed. There's power. There's tools of the kingdom. Satan has done a good job to deceive Christians into being blind to his tactics, but no longer. The kingdom of darkness is exposed for what it is, and we're going to push the message and empower the saints. There's Dr. Laura. I want to say her last name's Sanger, but I can't think of what her name is. But she is an expert. She's a PhD. These people are smart, intellectually competent, and have done all the hard work so that we can just have this information at our fingertips. But she's done a lot on actually spiritually mapping for spiritual warfare, because we know we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and spiritual wickedness in high places, don't we? We are taking the land back for our children. Today's election day. There's a lot of rituals that have been going on in the last 24 hours, but we are exposing the darkness, and we are shining God's light everywhere we go, aren't we, people? So let's go ahead back to this fascinating topic, the state sigils and seals, with Jesse Zabodar. All right, let's get the sound on me.
It's called Initiates of the Flame for those who are in the Order of Melchizedek.
Okay, talking about
and every page of this book is marked with these symbols. Like you'll see it.
It's free online.
You'll see Alamatic magic star or seal there.
There's no power.
You also will see the swastika. Why is it? It's because they're Nazis. We'll just put it out there. They are Nazis.
There you go.
And here we see that 5-fold star. And what does the 5-pointed star represent to the Brotherhood? It says this is a picture known to all Masons as that of the soul. It is the star of Bethlehem that heralds the coming of the Christ within. Okay,
See how
now
they
this is
twist
important language
the truth of
because you
God?
have to remember they're not, they're going to present things in a Christian light. We all connect the Star of Bethlehem to the coming of Jesus
All
Christ in the
sounds
flesh.
so
Um,
Christian-y.
so our minds automatically go there, but they're not Jesus as their Messiah, nor as their Lord or their God. They believe he's a God, but they believe that they also are
They
gods.
believe they
So
are
this
God.
star to them
Luciferian.
represents an image of the brotherhood and their godhood. The two clasped
know, right,
hands
yeah.
are the spirit and body
Yeah,
united
I
in the
know.
marriage of the Lamb.
They have
But
it so
basically they're
wrong.
going to have two men making a contract with
It
each other, one
sounds
representing the
plausible,
physical,
though,
one representing the
right?
spiritual.
If you don't know the Word of God.
It's a form of union of the higher and the lower that the Christ is born, right? But what are they
See,
doing? It
they're trying to
basically
present
you're
this
having homosexual
equality,
brother love.
duality.
Okay, so when we see, let me go back, when we see that imagery, it tells us there's a military base.
Tells you
In
everything.
fact, there's a specific reason why they put this crest with the star there, because they're telling us exactly where the brothers are going to go to have sex. You're going to go to have sex military base. That's what it's telling us.
So
And
gross.
the
That's all
same
it's
thing
about.
here
It's
is that
it's
you've
disgusting.
got the 5
It's
points,
so
but they've
gross.
6 actually with they've done it in a very creative way, but it's going to represent the same thing. And who the
They're
contracts
so
are
fancy.
under is, these tell us the principalities. This middle pole, those in Solomonic magic know that it represents Abaddon, the contract between Abaddon, Ashtaroth, and Leviathan.
It's all the principalities and powers.
Who
And
does
it's
the
about
X represent?
Freemason lodges.
That is straight out of Leviathan's sigil, or not Leviathan, I'm sorry, Abaddon's sigil. Let me just show you guys so you can kind of see. And don't be afraid, like we're not bowing down to these principalities, but when we understand how to read these things, understand who has authority,
we can
and
look
will tell us that the authority to heal the lower unclean spirits, like the spirit of lust and wrath and gluttony. And say that it doesn't distinguish when it be to cast out, whether it's a principality, commanding
all of them.
power, spiritual force, or if it's an unclean spirit. So in here, we see, you'll see a lot of the brotherhood
says we all need the Christ
images that they
within
for their contracts.
loving, living.
These are their sigil represents the authority that God gave them, their scope of spectrum of operations. That's what King Solomon figured out, was what God made that spirit for, what was their initial job.
Right.
And since they're not doing their job in heaven, how is it, how are they trying to do it here on earth? And what are the connections between the physical and the spiritual world? So you'll see
principalities and powers and contracts.
They take images from their sigil to represent that contract and the authority that spirit gives them to do things on the dawn. Now we also see that same X. We see it in our Oval Office above the doors, the door frames. You see that X marked. We see that in
See that wooden frame.
at the Greenbrier, they would mark that with a, an X. They have a program that they operate out of Greenbrier called Project X.
We'll look up Project X later.
Now, you'll also see in the military, you'll see this straight line. And, it'll look like a cross with 3 crossbars going through it. That's a specific, they will have that sign, the cross with the 3 crossbars in it, that they'll wear on their robes.
Looks like an anchor.
Representing they're under the authority of Avedon. This contract here, this is the same where we know, so let me see, it went to it. Avedon is at the top of that. You have Ashtaroth in the middle, and you have Leviathan down here.
Oh, yeah. I
And
know
then
you're
you've got
being
2 other principality authorities that are these other cross lines. You have Samael and Asmodai. So that's what this middle contract shows. It shows us who Avedon has specific contracts with. In fact, these are different contracts that they connect to the archangels. This symbol you'll find in Samael's sigil as well, showing what, the contract in the northern parts are versus other parts. We see this contract with the Lions Club. You'll see the crescent moon, like with the Shriners, it's a different contract. So, the Lions Club shows their contract with Avedon here, with a crescent.
See, there's a crescent moon
so
on
that's
South
where
Carolina,
that,
the state I live in.
That's where that
This
X
weird
comes
crescent
from. What they've creatively done with these keyholes here is they've made them look like keys. When you see the 2 keys, like when you see them displaced like this, or crossed or somehow overlapping,
You see that in
it all represents the same thing, that you've got Kabbalah magic, high level Kabbalah magic, that's on top of the Solomonic magic.
That means
and with that, you're going to have Kabbalah contracts on the land. And, this is going to represent that order of the Phoenix.
Look at it.
But still you see
the Muslim Brotherhood, the Order of the Phoenix.
No, they're, we've got that overlap with the ancient Maya, Incan, Aztec contracts that the system has under the order of the 5 rays of light here represented in the sun. Usually you'll see those rays going up, but they're specifically showing it here going down, because they're telling you that they're, that some of this stuff is all underground or above, which
but that makes sense.
There are. So, there's some of that in that area. You'll always see this ribbon with they'll put their wording in there, which kind of becomes their mottos, present ours or who with this imagery. If you looked hard enough, I bet you would find a lot of ancient Hawaiian gods that have like that dragon-like beard. One of them is Quetzalcoatl, is also connected to Q.
Cute.
And so, that's going to
Interesting.
be one of them in that area. And they're primarily,
I
they
always
work
learn
with
from
the
her.
Shriners to transport funds and assets from one place to another. So this also tells us again, we've got order of
funds and
red,
assets.
that you've got represent those contracts for there's the equal portion stuff, and in there have
Right.
Lucifer, the white contract with the great white brotherhood, the order of Melchizedek.
That's what they call it.
But it's just who's paying the funds, or the Vatican,
And the blue
it looks portions of things.
Interesting.
Is what they're showing. On top of this, because when we read these, it's going to be layered. So when we look at the sovereign military thing in this, we have the Sons of Liberty who are going to be connected. And then you're also going to have other distinct.
These are ancient rulers with Hawaii. You're looking at ancient structures.
And I noticed too, sorry to interrupt. And so this is the old Hawaii.
So this content creator is in Hawaii.
Like a Masonic position with the hand across the chest. And I don't know about the other one.
Or the side, down to the side.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So does that mean everything? Yes. And that's the new, wait, is that the new one? The new one, I think the two men are facing away.
To see, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, here, this one.
I think that's the old. What is that?
Well, here we see the old where they're facing away.
Change them up every now and then.
We see more of through it.
Telling
you get a lot of the same imagery still. But you see the two crowns on top of each other.
Wow.
It's representing warrior, the Garter Order of the Bath. Like you see Prince William, King Charles, whenever they wear their capes, they've got all those, that's what that represents, is the Order of the Garter and the Bath with the sovereign military. So it's interesting that in this older minute and present, but in the newer one, it's switched hands.
Yeah.
They've got different, the arrows representing the Order of the Odin has now taken precedence over, which the Knights of the Bath and the Garter were under more of the Vatican, under the UK, connected to their rule.
That's the palace. That's the palace behind. That's the Hawaii castle that we have, our palace.
Right.
That must be the original. I'm wondering the crest.
Yeah, and this is, you've got the undefined crest there. You see, Order of Solomon here. All the same things we were talking about that were in the other. And this would tell us more of, this is their colors for their robing. you're going to have the red and the white, which
The
Order
white
of Solomon is distinguished with the red, the kind of maroon and white.
red is the sand.
So you see that they still are probably the top sovereign
Blue,
military in the area.
Vatican.
And you've
Talking about the money systems.
So would we
Has-
look more
is
the coat of
Well, you
arms?
can use all of it.
dragon.
Okay.
The coat of arms is
Right.
going to tell you kind of quadrantly what you're dealing with, but you look at all of them because then it gives you the full picture. So, you know, when you're looking and praying over the whole quadrant, you know, you've got, you know, the Order of Solomon,
Spiritual
um,
warfare.
you've got, you know, all these, or the Sons of Liberty, you've got the Kabbalists, you know, and then, you know, the Golden Dawn, the Order of the Phoenix. Yes, it does, it just gives us in
It's a type of
we're
magic
gonna
that's available
we're gonna see
for the practitioners of witchcraft.
that's, you know,
See,
must be, you know,
a spiritual sacrifice.
together. I can tell
Right.
like it becomes ammo because we can use it for our prayer strategy. You know, Lord, show us those who are connected to these orders. As we look into those orders, we can understand their belief structure. What
Right.
type of magic are they doing? What, you know, are they going to be engaged in? You know, we know they're all going to be doing Solomonic magic, but maybe there's other forms of magic that they're engaging in as well. You know, Order of the Phoenix is, I encourage people, go back, watch some of the third Indiana, or the second Indiana Jones. That
See, it's all revealed. Plain sight, right, guys? That's what they love to do. We're gonna stop this. We thank you guys for joining us for the thank you so much for joining us for that watch party. And now we're just going to open up any discussion. Hopefully the internet won't lag too much on us today. And I find this very fascinating, don't you all? This is exposing the kingdom of darkness for what it is. It's principalities, powers, and wickedness in high places that have contracts with humans over land, over water. You know, the messages run deep, but it's all shown to us in plain sight. It's up to us to gain the knowledge and the insight so that we can discern what's really going on, so that we can pray specifically and map out the territory in our prayers and break the strongholds over our nation. Let's start with what's over our own house right now. What do you see on your state sigil? Let's, pull it up, do some research, look at the colors, look at the ribbons. They represent contracts. Contracts with who? Contracts for rights. Okay, so we know these rights are obtained by Satan through iniquity. There's yokes of oppression and iniquity in our land. And we as Christians are called to divide and conquer for the kingdom of God. Are we not equipped to do spiritual warfare? We are equipped. We are equipped. And we're becoming more insightful and more powerful in these last days. And that's why these things are being revealed to us. They were hidden for a long time. And, the Lucy's, as we'll call them, thought that, they had it made. They're looking for their little antichrist to step up and do what he does. And they're preparing for the end time events. Shouldn't we as Christians also prepare for end time events? Isn't God building his army right now? Right now, and isn't he going to come in glory and splendor like we have never even imagined? The best thing you can imagine, the most glorious, triumphant entrance, cannot compare with what's going to happen on that day. So don't be deceived when somebody says, look here and look here, here's the Christ, it's probably Project Bluebeam, and we're not going to be fooled. We are aware of the devices of the enemy, are we not? There's going to be no mistaken. On the day that Jesus comes back, every knee shall bow, every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Every tongue, believers and non-believers, every tongue will confess Jesus Christ is Lord. So don't be deceived, and be aware of the power of the enemy, the principalities, the spiritual darkness that are, encamped where we live, in our state, in our city, in our town, in our community. Look at the signs. The elite talk to each other. The Lucy's talk to each other in signs and symbols. So when you enter into your community from the highway, what sigils are presented? Pay attention. If you haven't looked before, look now. You'll see, 4-H, all these different little Oddfellow and the Blue Lodges, and you'll see, there's connection, Luciferian connections with hospitals, and believe me, if you were I'm just going to say this, if you were a vampire, wouldn't you want to be connected to a blood bank? You don't have to extract blood these days from people, directly. They have it all over the place in all kinds of hospitals. So if that was your thing, wouldn't you have a connection? There's whole segments of society that take place in dark rituals, and we're aware of them, and they are powerless. They serve a defeated foe. But I'm going to thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you for your input. Slay the wicked. You have yourself a beautiful day. And everybody else who's joined me today, thank you so much. I apologize for any lagginess. We're working on it. It's all good. One little step at a time, but we're going to keep the truth coming out. I love you guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And we will see you tonight talking true crime. We are talking about Amber, Micah, and Sebastian. We are exposing the truth, and I'm looking for some new cases. If y'all have any cases that you're interested in, let me know. Contact me. I'll be happy to look it over and see what I can find out also. Love you guys. Have a great day. Bye.